And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today I want to take a look at Back to the Future Dice Through Time and Back to the Future Back in Time and compare them. Now, you say, why are you comparing these two? Well, because they're both Back to the Future games, and they're both cooperative games, and they came out within a month of each other. So by very nature, they're going to be compared. I'm assuming the designers of both games were not thrilled to find out that the other game exists. And also, I think it's helpful to you because if you go to the store and you're looking for one of these and you see the other one, or vice versa, you might think, well, that's the same game. I mean, they both have the Back to the Future font. They both have very similar names, Dice Through Time, Back in Time, and they both show the DeLorean on the cover. It's very reasonable to think that these will get mixed up. Now, the designers and publishers are different. This one is from Funko Games, designed by Prospero Hall. This one is from Ravensburger, designed by a team of 3 designers, including Chris Leader, and who's done some other great games. And so, you know, I like both companies. I like both designers. If you go watch my reviews for both, and you've already done that, then you clearly know which one I enjoy more. But I'm hoping that this will be just a quick video to help you out to decide which one to get. First of all, let's talk about the theming of them. So Back to the Future, Back in Time is only the first movie. This is only the first movie, and it all takes place in the 50s. Because you are back in the 50s, you are playing Marty and Doc and possibly Jennifer and Einstein, and you are trying to go around and get Lorraine and George to fall in love with each other and get the DeLorean fixed so you can get back to the future. Thus the name of the game. There's not any really time travel in it. It's simply getting back to the future. Back to the Future Dice Through Time is all 3 Back to the Future movies, and you are in this one, all the players are playing Marty and Doc Brown, and you are all jumping back and forth through time, delivering items from one spot to another. So if you're looking for all 3 movies, you're going to want Back to the Future Dice Through Time. However, if you're looking for a strong theme, I think Back to the Future, Back in Time wins this one hands down. Even though it's only the first movie, it really feels like the first movie. There are different events that happen in this, from the principal calling people slackers to, Biff in this one feels like a viable, annoying presence as he's always going around trying to mess up with George and Lorraine. Biff is in both of these, by the way, but there are multiple Biffs in Back to the Future, like there was, but they're more of just something that you just need to push away. Although, I will say there's a lot of similarities. Both games use dice. Then both games, by the way, have nice quality components. Okay, so they're both really good in that regard. But both games use dice. I think both games have a certain amount of luck to them. But I think Back to the Future, Back in Time has more ways to mitigate that luck than Back to the Future Dice Through Time does. In this game, you get to choose the order of players. You get to choose special abilities and which dice you're going to use. There are different types of dice, and you can figure out percentages. With Back to the Future Dice Through Time, you're simply rolling the dice and then working with what you have. Both games encourage a strong cooperative thing. There's no traitors involved in them or nothing. Back to the Future Dice Through Time, it has the word time in it. They both do. Although, again, this one actually has you time traveling and has a neat mechanism called ripple dice, where you can leave a die in the past that someone else can use in the future. Both games have event cards that can really mess you up and sometimes help you in Dice Through Time. Back to the Time, they're usually just bad. This one has a map of the town that you're going through. I think I like the artwork better in Back to the Future, and I know this is not a big deal, but the DeLorean piece in Back to the Future, Back in Time is nicer than the one in Dice Through Time. So the price point on both is about the same. Back to the Future Dice Through Time, I feel, has an easier range of how hard or difficult you want it to make it. And if you're looking for an easier game to beat, this one I think is slightly easier, although I think it also swings really lucky. You could just have a really bad game or a really easy game. Back to the Future, Back in Time is a much harder game, but it also feels a little bit more satisfying to me to when to get it. So which do I recommend? Well, if you've been counting the different points throughout here, it's obvious I like Back to the Future Back in Time better. But a couple caveats there that I want to talk about. If I was buying this game to give someone who's never played games before, I would be happy giving them either. In fact, Dice Through Time might be a little easier for people who are new to the hobby to jump into. And if Back in Time did not exist, I feel like we might not even be having this conversation. This would be a fantastic game. And again, it's just unfortunate coincidence that they're both out at the same time. I like the story in this one. I love time travel a lot. I don't know that it works in a game as much, although the rippled dice do a good job at bringing it into something. But this game, when I was done, I was just like, wow, I want to play it again. That's how I felt with it. With Dice Through Time, I was like, yeah, it was okay. And that's a big difference in reaction from me. But realize this is just my opinion. You go on the internet, you're going to find a lot of opinions on both of these, and some people are going to like this one better, Dice Through Time. I also want to point out that some people are going to say, well, why not just get both? I think that's reasonable, but realize if you do that, you will then have 2 Back to the Future cooperative games in your collection. And I don't know how many people need that, right? Like Back to the Future, maybe you're a huge fan and you want every Back to the Future game, fine. And if you want a Back to the Future competitive game or something, but these are both very similar in the audiences that they are reaching. It's just one of those years where there's something that similar came across. So for my rankings for each, I rank Back to the Future Dice Through Time a 6, which for me is a ranking that I give games that I like, okay, but that I wouldn't necessarily seek out and play. Well, Back to the Future, Back in Time, I give a 9, which is one of the highest ratings I ever give to any game because I love the theme and integration that much. That sounds like a wide gulf between the two of them, and I don't mean it to be like, oh, get rid of this one. I don't. And again, it's kind of unfortunate that they came out the same time they did. But this is still one that I'm glad exists. I'm still glad that people can play it, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it. If you've played both, and you want to talk about the differences between them and which one you like better, this would be a great idea for you to look in the comments. So if you're watching this, check the comments out because I'm sure other people may have a different opinion than me. But until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and that is the differences, in my opinion, of Back to the Future Dice Through Time and Back to the Future Back in Time.